It was wonderful, but it was not. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's meeting, and I will call it to order at 4:03. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And moving on to 1.2, adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
and I also agree. Motion carries. And I'd like to welcome you, Barbara, to our meeting and sitting there in the hot seat.
Thank you. It's actually cool in here. It feels great.
Oh, well, we've got on our long johns over here today.
Lived in that area for 48 years. I know.
Okay, sounds good. Before we start with the interview, I would just like to give an overview. And also on behalf of the Board of Northern United Charter Schools, thank you for your interest in serving on the Board of Directors. This is our 6th year as Northern United Charter Schools. And as Jerry describes us, we are a combination of both a traditional school board and a nonprofit board of directors. Under our charter, we represent Humboldt and Siskiyou counties. Guided by our bylaws, and in a perfect world, Humboldt County is represented by 3 members and Siskiyou by 2. Each member has a 3-year term. Serving on our board is completely voluntary. We are not paid or compensated for our time. Our meeting schedule is based on a calendar year beginning in January and ending in December. We teleconference we teleconference our meetings from 7 different locations. Meetings are typically held on the 2nd Wednesday of each month. However, sometimes there's a need to adjust that. June has 2 meetings, except this June, we have 3, and we don't meet at all in July. As need arises, we often meet more than just once a month. For example, we met 4 times last year in March. The duration of our meetings varies from 7 minutes to over 3 hours. Anywhere in between. Yes. Pre-COVID, we would meet as a whole group twice a year, once in Humboldt and once in Siskiyou. We're trying to get back to that schedule, and we Humboldters traveled to Siskiyou earlier this year. In addition to the 5 board members, we also have 3 officers. I'd like to introduce everyone. We have Jessica Ramirez, who is over there, but not there today.
She probably met her last month when she was there.
Right. Oh, that's right. Yes, you did. And on the Humboldt side, we have Jerry Cox down at the end here, who is our past chairperson and board member. We have Brian Payton sitting right next to me here. He is the vice chair, and I'm Rosemary Kunkler, the president. And our officers are Sherry Lovett. She is our director. We have Linda Speck, who is our recording secretary until the end of the month, and we have her replacement here. And we have Kelly Withers, who is our treasurer. And moving forward to the interview, each board member will ask questions. Please feel free to ask for clarification or to repeat. After the interview is completed, we, the board, will have a discussion amongst ourselves and a decision will be made. The oath of office or swearing in will be immediately following. At that point, you will take a seat at the table and join us for the remainder of today's meeting. Jerry will lead the onboarding at a future meeting. Do you have any questions before we begin?
No.
Okay, and we're just going to go around and we're going to start with Jerry, Brian, and me. Jerry, Brian, and me. So, Jerry, take it away.
Well, welcome. This might be nerve-wracking. You may be nervous. It's easier for us to say than you to actually answer, but just take your time, think about your answer, and by all means, if you don't understand something, ask for clarification or ask to please repeat it. All right, so starting off, please tell us about yourself and what makes you the best candidate to serve on the Northern United Charter Schools Board of Directors. And why should we select you to serve and fill our current vacancy?
So, about me, I came up to Humboldt State in 1975 as a 17-year-old and never left. I met an Arcata High graduate and had a family. Got my degree in English, raised the family for a while, went back to school and got a teaching credential and a divorce. They weren't necessarily related, but one didn't help the other. Then I spent a number of years doing graduate school studies in teaching, writing, and substitute teaching, and other activities such as bartending and waitressing to make a living. Most of you probably know that getting a teaching job in Humboldt can be very difficult. There's a lot of competition. So I ended up working at the welfare department as a welfare eligibility worker. And from there, moved on to become a juvenile probation officer, which I did for 21 years.
Nice.
I worked with the community schools, the high schools, the junior highs, and some of the charter schools. I generally had people on my caseload who attended all and any of them. So I have some familiarities with the different school formats and philosophies. Let's see. Oh, so I worked for 21 years with Humboldt Probation and then retired in 2022. And shortly after that, my grandchildren were in need of a daytime care provider. Their mother unexpectedly got a job with First Five California here in Siskiyou. She wasn't expecting to go back to work with a baby, but I said, well, I'll move. I'll come over there and live and watch the kids. So up until for the last 2 years, I've been watching a now 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old 5 days a week, which I will tell you, there's a reason that most people have children when they're young, because they were exhausting. I love them dearly, but so they're not going to a daycare for socialization and because I'm getting tired. So, but I'm still here in Siskiyou, and I'm a lifelong volunteer. My parents were avid volunteers, PTA, hospital auxiliary, boys baseball, Cub Scouts. They got involved with everything that myself and my 4 siblings were involved with. And so I took that to heart as a parent myself. I was on the school site council for, 2 different elementary schools and a middle school. I didn't get as involved with the high school because, most high school kids don't really want their parents that involved. Anyway, but I was there, volunteering with Safe and Sober, graduations, that kind of stuff. Let's see. I continued to volunteer after my kids were out of the nest. I volunteered at the Humboldt County Library for a couple of years until my eyes got bad and I was still too vain to get glasses at the time because I had the best eyesight in the family for a long time. Wanted to keep it that way. And then I was on the community advisory board for both KHSU Public Radio and KEAT TV, including being the chairperson of both boards. Or no, I never did the chairperson at KEAT. I was secretary for a while. So being over here, now that I am not babysitting the children 5 days a week, I have time. And I have time that I would like to give some of to my community. And one part of the community that I have a very soft spot for and very deep concern for is teenagers. I've worked with at-risk youth a lot. I've worked with a lot of kids that weren't necessarily at risk, but maybe made a bad choice here or there. And I know that how important it is to keep them interested in their school system and to complete it. So in a community where there's everything's much smaller over here. I mean, I know after 48 years in Humboldt, it's a small region too, but not as small as Siskiyou. 2 bonus granddaughters just graduated from schools last week, and they graduated in a high school class of 35 and a middle school class of 32. So, it's much smaller here, but I know that it can also be difficult to attract interested people, both for paying and non-paying positions. So I'm a good candidate because I'm here, I'm available, I'm interested. And I don't see anyone else, so I feel like that definitely makes me a good candidate. I'm not sure if there was somebody else here, I'd probably have to come up with something better, but yeah, I think that I would be a good addition to the board. It will help me learn about this community more. But as I said, I'm already familiar somewhat with the system from having lived in Humboldt. So I don't know if I captured all of those. I think there were 3 parts to the question.
I think you did just quite an adequate job. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, first I want to say thank you for applying for this board position. I can definitely, what you said, my wife was a teacher for so many years. Now she works at a regional center, so I can definitely, relate to what your answers. And I've been a lifelong in the community volunteering as myself. But my question I have is, our bylaws reference when filling a vacancy, we are to look for candidates who have experience in 1 or more of the following areas: education, government, law, business, finance, accounting, fundraising, facilities, public relations. What experience do you have in any one of these areas? And I think you've mentioned some of them already from your previous answer, but feel free to add more or talk about it again.
Right. Well, definitely government and law and education and facilities were all kind of present in the package of being a juvenile probation officer for 21 years. I worked with the kids that were detained in juvenile hall as well as those who were out of custody and going through the court process. I realize that there may have been some changes to the law, but I'm actually, I hate the word actually, sorry. I am familiar with laws about foster care and homeless youth and their educational rights. Let's see, fundraising, done a lot of that during my years at KHSU in particular. We were trying to raise money. This is probably 15 years ago. We were raising money for the big transmitter. I don't want to talk about KHSU too much because it makes me very sad because of what happened to KHSU. Don't know, go look it up in the North Coast Journal because it was devastating. Okay, I'll move on from that. But yes, also fundraising for kids. They were in schools. Am I on?
No, hang on, Barbara.
We hear you, but we don't see you.
Okay, it says default speaker has changed to speakers, medium owl, and I don't know, I didn't touch anything.
So do you see the computer, or you could just get Colleen, but the computer that
What's your
is
name?
like near that board?
Colleen. Colleen's here to the rescue.
Oh, you got it. It's better. It's back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even breathe that way.
Walked back to the off of the owl for some reason.
So fundraising with youth activities. I myself sold Girl Scout cookies at one point. Let's see, education. I did have a teaching credential. I substituted for many years. I taught freshman composition at Humboldt for 3 semesters as part of graduate work. I was on school site council, public relations to some degree with some of the various organizations that I've done fundraising with. Oh, I was also on a board member for the Humboldt Deputy Sheriff's Organization. And we did a lot of public relations in trying to get the sales tax measures passed. I took a grant writing class a long time ago. I don't really remember very much from the class, but I still have the folder somewhere from it. Yeah, I know on the application, I gave myself a 1 in finance. I think that was just because I'm still terrible about balancing my checkbook. But online, just check it. Hey, it's all cool. It's not like when my mom would get all the paperwork out, set it up. So I hope that that gives some idea of my experience.
Thank you. It's my turn now.
All right.
Are you familiar with parliamentary procedure such as Robert Rules of Order? What is your familiarity with the Brown Act? And finally, what does chain of command mean to you in terms of school governance?
Well, I am familiar with Robert's rules. We use them pretty loosely at HDSO, but I've been to other board meetings over the years. I used to, when we lived out in Fieldbrook, I used to attend the meetings, the school board meetings there regularly because I was writing the little news bit for Fieldbrook for the Arcata Union. I'm kind of showing my age on some of those. Let's see, Brown Act. My understanding is that, more than two, you don't discuss school board matter outside of board chambers at authorized times. I'm sure there's a little more nuance to it, but I think that's pretty much the basic. And, chain of command. So I understand chain of command pretty thoroughly, not necessarily in direct relation to a school board or school structure, but the idea that decision-making can have its, small decisions might be able to be made on a low level, but as you move up the importance of decisions, you have to go up to higher levels of authority before decisions can be made. and that the person with the top authority is the one who does the delegating and then is who you report back to. So, it's like a lower person in the organization doesn't get to make a major decision on their own without referring to whoever's in charge.
Thank you.
Wow. All right, what do you see as the basic purpose of a public charter school? And there are two parts to this. So the first part, what do you see as the basic purpose of the charter school? And second part, what do you see as the role of the board of directors in fulfilling that purpose? The board of directors, or synonymous with school board?
Okay. So I'm sure there's probably a fancy definition of charter schools or even a legal definition, but I see them as another way to deliver education to the community for those who might not fit into the traditional or private settings that are available. And having worked with community school in particular, I know that, it's a lot of round pegs and square holes or vice versa in our education system. And it's should not be a one size fits all, but too often it comes out that way. When I worked for the county, at one point we were getting new desks and they were going to be new ergonomic desks, but they came and set them up and told us we had to have them all set up the same way. And that if we needed to have it any different than the official way, we had to get approval. We had to go to HR, the whole 9 yards. And it's like, well, doesn't that kind of blot out the ergonomic factor? So, if a child is not comfortable in the traditional school setting, we need to make a place that they feel comfortable. Charter schools offer that setting and allow children who might have different family needs to be able to attend and participate in school without necessarily putting a hardship on their family. And then how a board would function, is that what that was? How does a board?
What's the role of the board in fulfilling that purpose?
Right. So, well, boards in general have the very basic duty of things like passing budgets, developing allotments for how funds are going to be spent, overseeing hiring, and
Oops.
Oh, did we lost her?
I wonder if they're having like caliber problems or something.
Oh, Kathy's got me.
Oh, Colleen's
Mhm.
still on though.
Oh, well, that's odd.
Because if there's like a drop in
Hold on, I'll help her in just a sec.
Thank
the
you.
I don't
connection,
know what happened.
then it could.
Yeah.
I'll just put you on for just a second, okay?
Wow. And this is like. It's unfortunate we have to go through the rest of the question.
They call me.
Speed along, speed it along.
It's more of a waste of time.
I forgot to plug it in. I'm sorry. It'll be just a second.
That's all right.
Do we have to? Or could we just end it?
Yeah. I mean, that's totally your call. It's your process.
You're the
What do you guys think?
chairperson.
But you guys can look at it and see if there's just anything else you would like think you want.
And we don't have to amend anything, because I mean, whatever your process is, that next time, if we do it this time, we gotta make sure we're able to do it the next time as well, if there's only one candidate.
It depends
Well,
on the
that's true.
candidate,
Right.
how they are.
We just want to make sure that the process is fair for every
Sure,
candidate who
sure.
comes to that. That we don't look like we're just gonna say, here you go, and then next, if we have one candidate
Well,
again.
if, are
Or,
we all in agreement or not?
I mean, I'm in agreement, I just want to make sure that it'll be a fair process, that if someone else comes along, that we're able to do the same thing.
If they are of the same caliber.
I could look in the handbook and see exactly. how
Just to make
it's
sure.
worded, this process, if you want.
I don't believe, my recollection is, it's not tied to. It's totally art,
It is.
and
Okay.
really, this list is optional. We designed it to begin with. You gave us a list, and we have tweaked it a couple times since the very first time, if I recall. And
That's not even in the handbook.
the only, may I recommend, if this be the case, then you end it by asking, do you have any questions for us?
And then we can ask if we have any questions or anything.
And then
I don't even.
have our own back and forth comments, things,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
what do you think that
Mhm.
you?
Comments or
you
questions.
well?
Mhm.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like she was giving you the questions.
Right,
They were
right.
Your questions, you could,
The other thing is, she's lived here in Humboldt for a significant portion of her life.
Yeah.
announce this,
So
I
she
mean, she's
knows-
uniquely situated to know both sides.
Mhm.
She knows the location of many things. She's, K-Hum and Keith and Northwest
Mhm.
Journal. The old HSU is like, dang,
Mhm.
English major.
But do
So
you,
she, Rosemary can compete in wordsmithing, finding the little numerical error, punctuation mark is missing.
do you think that we need to have a discussion amongst us?
Well, I
Or
mean,
can we just go to a vote?
yeah.
Yeah,
I only
I
have
think
one,
it's been-
I only have one question.
okay,
Well, I know that I mentioned to the candidate, the only question I had was, is making sure that she can.
All right,
Okay, we're back.
Once we're going to
Okay.
everybody.
No.
That's the only question I have.
The applicant,
Do
are you still
that
doing the
with
applicant?
the time and be committed.
You don't have
That
to.
is a commitment.
She's the only one in the
for them to
room,
watch the
and
fight.
Al's not needed.
then you know what?
That's the only question I have.
Okay, then I'm gonna turn it back to you
Mhm.
to ask that one question,
Okay.
and then I'll take that.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Can you hear us okay?
That's when we run into issues.
Because that is something that we have run into
Yes.
more than once.
Yeah.
Are you guys hearing us okay?
We
Yeah.
hear you, yes, we hear you. Do you hear us?
We're back.
Yes, except the sound is now wonky, so
Oh, wonky, we haven't heard that.
yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to use?
Here.
Bianca,
That was her word.
Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can fix this. I just have to plug in these extra speakers.
Okay.
yeah, you're absolutely right. She is uniquely.
Yeah, definitely. Her first answer.
I mean, she's gonna bring, wow, a wealth of.
Speakers, that's good.
Mhm.
I don't think that we have had a candidate where we have wanted to stop and say we're done. We've
Oh,
had enough.
right.
Yeah. Are we hooked?
Okay, can somebody say something?
Hear
Okay.
us? Test, can you hear us?
Hmm.
Can you hear us?
Is anybody over there talking at all?
Yes, we're talking.
Talk. Hello.
Right, since the camera's on you if you
Yeah.
talk.
Rude.
You hear me?
Rutabaga.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Colleen?
Yes.
Yay.
Okay,
Oh, now she's frozen. There we go.
Yes,
Where's-
thank you.
is Barbara
Okay.
coming to us?
Yep, Barbara, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Barbara, this is Rosemary. We are not going to continue with the question you were answering. Brian, would like to ask you another question before we move on.
Okay.
Uh-oh, we lost you, I think.
No, she's still there.
Yeah.
You're still there, just Colleen needs to switch places with her because we can't see her.
But Colleen was talking and I didn't hear her.
Well,
Oh, you can see Colleen, but not me?
no, we were talking to you, Barbara, but we
Okay.
can't see you. You're like not in the picture.
Oh,
Camera's pointed at Colleen. We see Colleen sitting there. Colleen.
okay, hold on. Okay. We'll get this.
I think you don't have the owl plugged in. Because it's just the camera from the computer, which is fine, but just let Barbara sit there, then we'll see her.
Yeah, it's just not gonna. This, okay, Barbara, I'll change some, I guess. No idea why it's not working.
There she is.
Issue.
Oh. And maybe the speakers will sound better over there too. True, true. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay,
So
Right.
I had a question. If we were to choose you to sit on our board today, would you be would you be really committed and able to be on our board? Like, would you have the time? The only reason why I'm asking is you said that you watch your grandchildren 5 days a week, and I don't know what times you watch them.
Right,
I
right.
just want to make sure that you have the time to do it and there's no conflict.
Yes, good catch. I, up until just a week and a half ago, I was babysitting them Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Although their mother had flexibility and was always able to, facilitate my attending anything that I needed to, whether it was doctor's appointments, etc. But now they are going to a family daycare, and instead of coming to me, so I get to just be grandma and spoil them and not have to make them take naps and things like that, and have my time pretty much free to my own self. I do have some travel plans for the summer, but it's not extensive.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, that's all.
And we are going to fast forward to the final question that
Okay.
which is, do you have any questions for us?
Well, I was wondering, aside from the meetings that you hold, these monthly plus or minus meetings, are there other activities that the board participates in? Do they get involved with, say, like holiday activities or things like that?
That varies from member to member. It's not a requirement. For instance, Jerry is involved with our FFA. He's kind of been the board liaison for that. Brian,
I went to the winter dance.
Brian is a chaperone and a volunteer at some of our activities, and I try to make site visits and participate in as many activities that I can between the elementary campus and the high school. So it's as much or as little as you feel you want to do.
Okay. Great.
We do traditionally have whoever is the board president come to the graduation ceremony too.
That seems like a pretty significant activity.
Yeah.
Any other questions for us?
I don't think so.
Okay. At this time, I would like to move on to 2.2, which is consideration of appointment of new NUCS board member. Do we have any questions for each other, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I have a comment that,
Okay,
I felt that you gave great answers. You have lots of experience, you have, and the fact that you're also a volunteer in the community, even in the school setting, played a role in the experience of, getting on this board, and, I think you're gonna be a valuable asset to the board.
Thank you.
Jerry?
Um, I have to say, Barbara, I'm really quite impressed. The totality of your background, it's rich and diverse. And I think you would be a great addition to the board based on that. We deal with issues that in your professional life you have had responsibility for or dealt with, homeless, dealing with law enforcement, fundraising, aware of the function of a board. Rarely does someone come before us that has a basic understanding, if anything at all, of the Brown Act. I mean, you pretty much nailed it. No more than two members discussing something that stays basically within this room. And so on. I can continue to cite some examples. It's I'm not necessarily meaning to pump you up, but as an original one of two remaining original board members in the inception of Northern United, we rarely have seen such a qualified candidate to join the board of directors.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know what else I can say that my two partners over here have not already said. I wholeheartedly agree with them. And I don't want to say welcome aboard just yet because we do have to go through the motions. So is there a motion?
I move to appoint Barbara as the new Siskiyou member of Northern United Charter School.
Is there a
Board of
second?
Directors.
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And I also agree, motion carries, and before the oath of office, I still want to say welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, Barbara, the correct pronunciation of your last name is Berger?
Burger, just like hamburger.
Oh, that's gonna be easy. Yes, Burger.
No, I asked my
Okay.
dad once why they didn't change it when whichever ancestor came in to Ellis Island, and he said because they came in before Ellis Island, so there was nobody there telling them to change it.
Oh, there we go. Okay. And at this time, we'll move on to 2.3, which is the oath of office. So if I could ask you to raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, Barbara Berger.
I, Barbara Berger,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
and I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Welcome aboard.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yay.
And moving
Does you
forward,
have an agenda, copy of an agenda in front?
I emailed the agenda and packet to her.
Okay, good.
and so moving forward, you will be an active participant in the rest of today's meeting and down the road in the future as well.
Okay.
So we will order a name placard. Or is that Kelly?
Did I get a picture?
It's
I have it on my tablet.
the secretary.
To do this,
Mm.
Tamara is our new recording secretary and she's learning on the job also.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
item. I like it tonight on the agendas.
all right. So Barbara, to follow along, we are moving on to the consent agenda. And right now we have 3.1, consideration of approval of warrants and payroll for Northern United Humboldt Charter School. 3.2, consideration of approval of warrants and payroll for Northern United Siskiyou Charter School. And 3.3, consideration of approval of minutes for the May 14th board meeting. Are there any comments or questions about any of those?
No,
And hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as posted.
And a second?
I second that.
All those in favor? Jerry?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
And I also agree, motion carries. Moving on to public comments. 4.1, comments by the public. Under this item, the public is invited to address the board regarding items that are not on today's agenda. Please keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes. The board is not allowed under the law to take action on matters that are not on the agenda. Should comments from the public pertain to a charge or complaint against an employee of Northern United Humboldt Charter School or Northern United Siskiyou Charter School, the board encourages the speaker to utilize the school's written complaint procedures to pursue the matter. The public will have an opportunity to comment on all agenda items as those items are heard. Do we have any public comments? All right. Moving on to action items. 5.1, approval of the NUCS extracurricular club policy.
Okay, well, you guys know this is the second reading. You saw this for the first time last month. We did this policy in 2 readings because this was a policy we did not have before. That's kind of been our process. If it's a brand new policy, we do a first reading and then we don't actually take action till the second time. And then if it's a policy we already have and we're just making amendments, we usually just do it in 1 meeting. But this one, as you recall, we have not had a policy on clubs. Just in general, we didn't do clubs. But as, you know, over the years, especially more recently, as we have been doing a lot of needs assessments, getting a lot of feedback from the student leadership groups, surveys, you know, focus groups, parents, all of the meetings, the input we get. We have been trying to increase our engagement opportunities for our students, and they have been asking for clubs. And so we thought that we should have a policy in place that would kind of spell out all of the guidelines related to any clubs that we have. And you guys remember in the last packet, I only put one page.
Oh, yeah.
And so then I had to send you the second page. So this time you got to see the whole thing. And I did not hear any feedback from anybody, you know, after you got to see the full thing, nobody gave me any additional feedback or anything. So other than the one thing that I did notice at the last board meeting, you may remember there was a random 4. And I removed that. But other than that, that was the only change. And so I don't know if you guys had any more input now, or if, you know, you feel it's ready to go, it's up to you.
Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay. Barbara, any questions or comments?
No, not at this time.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the NUCS on extracurricular club policy.
And a second?
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
and I also agree, motion carries. 5.2, approval of, excuse me, approval of Title IX policy prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sex.
Okay, this is a policy that we already had, so that's why there's not a first and second reading. This one is a convoluted tale. If you read the background, you already saw this, but we had a Title IX policy for quite a while. There weren't a lot of changes with Title IX for many years. And then at some point, I guess maybe it was last year, it was in 2024, there were some major updates to it, enough updates to Title IX that it required everybody to update their policies. So I brought you a new policy at that time. We had our attorneys write it because this is something that we wanted to make sure it was really done well. And previous to that, we had one policy, and honestly, I don't even remember what the name was. It was a long policy, but it had both Title IX requirement components and kind of some bullying and sexual harassment kind of policy components all wrapped into one. Well, when these major changes happened with the law in 2024, our attorney thought that it would be best to split those two apart. So we did. So you saw on the agenda, this is actually in 2 separate parts. So I can't tell you when, I wrote it in the background, look at me. August 14th, so earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, our first board meeting this year, we adopted those 2 new policies. Then January rolls around and we have a new administration at the federal level, and then there's a lawsuit regarding those changes to Title IX. And the court ruled in their favor, and so it reverted back to what had originally been in Title IX before those changes happened in April, and that you adopted the policy in August. So because of that, we needed to adopt new policies now that align or come into compliance with what the current Title IX regulations are. And again, we went back to Young, Minnie, and Core, our attorneys, and said, okay, here were the ones you fixed for us in August. Now we need to update them again based on the January ruling. And so that's what you have here. So this first one, 5.2, is the new Title IX one that has been updated. And then 5.3, the next one, is the new harassment, intimidation, discrimination, and bullying policy that has been updated. Any questions on that? I know that's kind of confusing. It just keeps going back and forth. So I'm imagining it will stay like this for the next 3 years.
But you don't know.
But I don't know.
Yeah, you know.
No one can predict.
That's true.
True.
Any other questions or comments for Sherry?
But we got good attorneys.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, and yeah, I've come to value young men in court
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot
definitely.
over the years.
That's really good.
Yeah. So, and their focus is charter schools,
Mm-hmm.
so they're looking out for us.
All right, hearing no other comments or questions, is there a motion?
I move to approve Title IX policy prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sex as presented in the board packet.
And a second?
I will second that.
All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
and I also agree, motion carries. 5.3, approval of harassment, intimidation, discrimination, and bullying policy.
And to be honest, this particular one had very few changes because this one really wasn't related to it's related to Title IX, but this one wasn't related to the court case that happened in January. But I went ahead and had them look at both of them anyway, since they had been merged as one before those original changes happened. So they just made some very minor ones on this one.
Um,
Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, Barbara?
No.
Any question? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the harassment, intimidation, discrimination, and bullying policy.
And a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
and I also approve. Motion carries. Moving on to 5.4, approval of the 2025-26 consolidated application for funding for NU Humboldt.
All right, well, for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you've seen this before. We commonly refer to it as the CON app. And what the CON app, the consolidated application is the application that schools complete to apply for federal title funding. So you guys have heard of Title I funds. We're a Title I school. So that's one of the revenue streams that we get from the federal government. And this is the application where we're applying for the new year for our federal funds. So Barbara, just for your benefit, you'll see on the agenda, moving forward, pretty much everything is always on there twice. Once for Humboldt and once for Siskiyou. So not so much for the policies, since the policies are the same for both, but just things like this, plans and the budget and things like that, you'll always see too. So this first one is the one for Humboldt. And like I said, it's the application for our federal funding for next year, the title funds. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that or not, but this is done. We do the CON app in 2 different parts. This is the initial application, and then again, later in the year, we do a separate section, but that part doesn't come to the board, just the application does.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Sherry?
No.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 consolidated application for funding for Northern United Humboldt.
And a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
and I also agree. Motion carries. 5.5, approval of 2025-26 consolidated application for funding for NU Siskiyou.
And I'll just add one thing. This is basically the exact same thing, but for Siskiyou, but it looks different in the packet. You may have noticed that, and that's just kind of a stylistic thing for the two county offices.
Okay.
So Humboldt County Office of Education, for our board purposes, just gives us that application page. And they'll later on, I'm guessing when they get more time, they'll print off everybody's full packet and give it to us. And Siskiyou County Office of Education, they go ahead and give us the whole packet now. They have less districts to enter, less charters to enter, so I don't know, they're a little faster on it, I guess. So that's why you have the whole packet for Siskiyou and just the application page for Humboldt, in case you were wondering. You probably weren't wondering.
Seems to be common practice. Always difference.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move to approve the 2025-2026 consolidated application for funding for Northern United Siskiyou Charter School.
And a second?
I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Jerry?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
And I also agree, motion carries. Moving on to 5.6, appointment of school director as a voting member representing the independently reporting charter schools on the Humboldt Del Norte SELPA Policy Council.
You like that?
Wow,
It's been
a lot.
It's a long time. Okay, so this has a little bit of background that, I put some in the packet, obviously, but just to give you a little bit of background, and maybe I even reported on this in the director's report one time, a couple years ago, maybe. So for those of you who don't know, SELPA stands for Special Education Local Planning Authority. And basically what happens is, we meaning all schools in California, get money to serve students who have special education needs. And the state does not give that money directly to the school districts and the charter schools, unlike other funds that we get directly from the state. Instead, the money goes to what they refer to as SELPAs. And basically, they just take the state and divide it into different regions. So each region has a different SELPA. On the Humboldt side, it's Del Norte and Humboldt together. On the Siskiyou side, it's just Siskiyou. We're in the Siskiyou SELPA on that side. So the funding goes directly to the SELPAs, and then the SELPA has basically like a board. But on the Humboldt side, they call it the SELPA Policy Council, that is made up of different area superintendents that are part of the SELPA. And that board makes policies for the SELPA. They vote on things related to how that funding is distributed to all of the schools in the area. Well, on the Humboldt side is specifically what I'm talking about right now. There are only two charters in Humboldt that are what's considered independently reporting charters for special ed purposes. And what that means is we are our own LEA for special ed purposes. So what happens for every other charter in Humboldt County is whoever their authorizing district is. Like for us, our authorizing district is Humboldt County Office of Ed. But let's just say Laurel Tree Charter School, for example, their authorizing district is Northern Humboldt School District. They are the district, Northern Humboldt, is their special ed LEA. So the district gets to make the decisions about what happens in special ed for that charter. The charter doesn't make the decisions on their own. They're like under the umbrella of the district. So the money from the SELPA goes directly to that district, and then the district decides how to distribute it to their charter and their own district. And also the district represents them on the policy council where they're making the decisions. Well, like I said, there are only two charters in Humboldt County that are our own LEA for special ed purposes. It's us and Pacific View. Well, I have been on the SELPA Policy Council when I was a superintendent before from Atoll. And, once I wasn't superintendent anymore, I realized there was no representation. We didn't have representation because even though our authorizing entities sit on that policy council, they don't get to make our special ed decisions. We make them ourselves, unlike all the other charters. So a couple of years ago, I approached who then was the executive director of the SELPA, a woman named Mindy Fattig, and talked to her about this. And she was like, yeah, you're right. This should be changed or whatever. I'll bring it to the policy council. We'll work on this. Well, then she left. She took another job, that she left that role. And they've had two different people since then. And each one I talked to had a meeting and talked to about it. And so I just, started feeling like, okay, we need to move forward on this, and so I kind of just started maybe bugging, I don't know, about this, attending the meetings and approaching. And the current executive director agreed that it should come to the policy council to be voted on. It went there, 3 different meetings, Callie, is that what you would say? I mean, probably 3 different meetings. It required them to change their bylaws. It required them to change their structure, all the stuff about how many voting members there are and all those kinds of things. So they eventually did it. And so now there is one person who's going to be the representative, the voice for those 2 charters. And so she left it up to, us and Jim Malloy. James Malloy is the director of Pacific View, and Jim didn't want to do it. Down to, which I totally understand. And I said I was happy to do it because I have done it before. And so, anyway, the process for that is you guys have to appoint me as a voting member representing the independently reporting charter schools. So that's the background there. And what I included in your packet is, like I mentioned, they had to change their bylaws and those kinds of things. That is what I included, their agenda where they did that and all that background information in there. So you would see what it had been changed to. And, there was only one little thing that I would say that I felt like was, maybe not my favorite thing, but whatever, pick your battles. You'll see in the bylaws how many students a representative on that SELPA Policy Council equates to a vote. So, like, for example, if you're a rep, let's just say of, I'm making this up because I'm not going to look at the actual numbers, but let's just say a bigger district like Eureka City Schools, like let's just pretend they get 2 votes because of the numbers.
Right.
And let's say the breakdown was for every 1,500 students you represent, 1,600, okay. For every 1,600 students you as a voting member represents, because not only are there district reps, but there are regional reps. So for every 1,600 students, that's 1 vote. So if your region has 3,500 students, that gets 2 votes. Okay, so for all of that, the regional and the districts, it's 1,600, but for charters, they made it 3,500. So we wouldn't get more votes. Was it?
No, I was
Okay,
just saying.
we wouldn't get more votes ever, and they made sure of that because they added up all the enrollment in charter schools to make sure that it was under that 3,500.
We're like a loophole.
It's like, okay, whatever, do it differently for us, okay? Even though our students have the same needs and
Yeah.
whatever, But anyway, you pick your battles. We have a voice on there now, and that's what some of the members on the committee felt like they needed to vote this way.
That's good.
So anyway, that's the background.
Are you also representing Pacific View?
Yes,
And so you are going to report back to
exactly.
Jim?
Yes. Mhm. And the same thing happens for those regional ones. Like, for
Uh-huh.
example, when I was on it because I was superintendent of Mattole, it wasn't Mattole doesn't get their own vote, it was Irva, Eel River
Oh,
Valley.
got it.
And so,
Okay.
we have leader meetings like
Mhm.
that, so monthly we have a charter leaders meeting. Monthly Irva has a meeting, and so, as the rep, I discuss what happens. I do the same thing, I sit on the board for the North Coast Schools Medical Insurance Group. I do the same thing for that. I bring it back, the information back and have them tell me what input they have on things we're gonna be voting on or whatever. So it'll be that same process.
I'm also on fiscal committee, so they'll get both sides.
Yes. Yeah, they had charter representatives on the fiscal committee for SELPA, but not on the policy council.
That was new as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
except for Travis, the director that's charged.
that's true.
How often you guys have to meet?
It's about once, I think it was less than once a month, like 4 times a year, or 5 times a year, something like
I
that.
want to say they scheduled 6, but I think they
We only had to do
expect
5.
do
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, something like that.
I didn't know they even have a policy council. I know so, but wow, that's interesting.
Okay.
That's good for that.
So that's what that is about. So, for me to be able to serve as the voting member, I have to be appointed by you guys.
Oh, sounds good.
Are there any questions or comments for Sherry?
Hmm.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'm happy to. I move to appoint our school director, Sherry, as school director, as a voting member representing the independently reporting charter schools on Humboldt Del Norte SELPA Policy Council.
What a mouthful.
Mhm.
And is there a second?
I second all the way.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
I
Brian,
Aye.
Barbara,
Hi.
and I also agree, motion carries. 5.7, approval of WASC mid-cycle report for NU Humboldt.
All right, so for those of you who've been around a little bit, WASC stands for the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. Western Accreditation of Schools and Colleges. It is the entity that the Department of Education recognizes, accredits schools in the western part of the United States and Guam and other places. But anyway, so for your high school students to graduate and be able to go to a 4-year university, your high school has to be WASC accredited, has to be accredited because it says that basically your high school is meeting a minimum standard of what a high school graduate should have. It keeps us at a certain standard, a certain level. You do a big self-study and have a visiting team come and, go to your school. They read your self-study report and visit all your places and interview teachers and parents and students. That's all part of the accreditation process. And then they give you your accreditation status. And the options are, you don't have to, you're accredited, fully accredited, and we're not going to even come and talk to you again for 6 years. That's one option. Or we're gonna, you're accredited and for the full 6 years, but in the middle of that cycle, at year 3, you'll just give us a report updating. And then the next option is you get the full 6 years, middle of it, at 3, you give a report and we're gonna send a visiting committee. Or you don't get accredited at all, or you get a 1-year accreditation. There's different ones. But anyway, the last time we, both Humboldt and Siskiyou, we got the full 6 years with just a mid-cycle report, no visit needed to happen, just an update like, hey, here are the things that we've been working on for these last 3 years. So both of those were submitted, Humboldt and Siskiyou, by the deadline, which was June 1st. And I included the reports in your packet so that you could review those. They do ask that the report gets approved either by leadership or the board, as part of the process. And of course, leadership approved it already, and I wanted it to come to the board. So this item, the first one is Humboldt, and the second one is Siskiyou. They give you a template to follow, and they tell you, this part can't be this more than this many pages or this many paragraphs or whatever. And they ask you to include links for data, which is all in there. And I think that's it.
Any questions or comments for Sherry?
None.
I would like to make a comment. the last time or the first time that we went through this, I think that the committee left, I don't think that, I know it, that they left very impressed with what they saw in our district. Kudos to everyone that had a part in that.
Yeah, thank you to Mary Havens on the Humboldt side, who was the lead, and to Kirk Miller on the Siskiyou side, who was the lead on this.
Mhm. Yeah. They were impressed, and they
Yeah.
should be. We're very impressive.
Not biased.
No.
And more so now than then.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Never mind.
That actually made writing the report kind of fun, because like to
Yeah.
say all the things we've done in the
Sure,
last
sure.
3 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is huge.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the WASC mid-cycle report for Northern United Humboldt Charter School.
And a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
And I also agree, motion carries. 5.8, approval of WASC mid-cycle report for NU Siskiyou.
Same.
Same. My comments are the same. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the WASC mid-cycle report for Northern United Siskiyou.
And a second?
And I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jerry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Barbara?
Aye.
And I also agree, motion carries. Moving on to 6.1, possible agenda items.
Woo,
Ooh.
a lot.
Oh,
So
Two
you
big
guys know
meetings.
the 2 regular June board meetings is where we have 3 different public hearings, well, 6. Cause 3 for Humboldt, 3 for Siskiyou, on our LCAP, our budget, and our EPA, which we'll talk about then. And then we also vote on all of those things. We will be, as we mentioned, we're having a new secretary with the retirement happening. So you guys know how at our organizational meeting, you guys always vote in the officer.
Uh-huh.
So that's gonna be an item on there to vote in the new officer. There's so many things. I mean, I could just keep rattling on, but
I mean, anything,
all our food agreements. I know one more lease, the only lease that we haven't done yet. So
anything different or unusual aside from approving the new secretary, than typical last 2 monthly
not at all.
meetings?
No, in fact, the only other thing I think that I didn't mention, do you guys remember how we do those? It's CS1 and CS7, which is the signature pages for who could pick up what at the county offices. So that's on there. And then there's also is the LCFF local indicator data, which you guys may remember, we do that every year too. And it's just some additional data that we collect, kind of part of the LCAP process, but done a little separately. And then we input it into the state system and it gets reported on the California School Dashboard. There is actually one other thing that's a little unusual that's gonna be on there. And we'll talk more about it at the time, of course, but we have an employee who's retiring from STRS. And it is a position that we have been unable to fill. It's a really difficult position to fill. And there is a waiver process. STRS rules are, once you retire, you have to wait 180 days before you can do STRS credible work again. There's a waiver process for that, and we are going to be trying to do that waiver process. So that is a different thing. It requires you guys approving a resolution. And there's a form that CalSTRS gives us to fill out. And so that's an unusual thing on it.
Okay,
But that's it.
okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. 6.2, our next board meeting dates will be Wednesday, June the 25th, and Thursday, June the 26th. I would like to once again welcome Barbara as our new board member and Tamara as our new recording secretary. And I want to thank everyone for coming. This meeting is officially adjourned at 5:18.
Ooh. Hey, Tamara, did you work at Eureka City Schools? Zoe Barnum? Okay, I know who you are. You know Amy Jester.